Minutes, see. Which city council members, show up. That's okay. Thanks for this. Yeah. Is it
gonna make it?
Yeah.
Shut that. Oh my gosh. I never know. I feel for a lot. You did it just seem like.
I do.
Great last minute idea to grab them.
Mayor, would you mind, I printed out the financials for everyone, but since, Councilmember Thomas isn't here, can we give Rachel those?
You move?
Councilmember Luna, so
Oh, sure.
I just know you usually do digital, but since I'm not sure.
I don't see anybody else, so we're pretty good in that. Sorry, it's like, we must just. You're okay, just spread it out. You folks. Yeah, we got. I think that you. Okay, at this time it is 6:05, I'd like to call the city council meeting of September 19th, 2023 to order. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Hill. Councilmember Luna,
Here.
Mayor Lobby,
Here.
Councilmember Grant. Present. Mayor Pro Tem Green. Here. Councilmember Thomas.
Here.
And Councilmember Larson is absent.
Okay, thank you very much. At this time we have the optional pledge of allegiance or moment of silence.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. I would ask the approval of the agenda. Is there anything anybody would like to add, delete, or change on the agenda? There's a significant agenda, so we'll try to keep things moving along. Hearing no changes, I will give Ken a reports.
Right, I need to approve the agenda.
Any other discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you. All in favor. At this time, we have any housekeeping matters, anything you'd like to talk about before we get rolling? Okay. Go ahead, Shannon.
I was dismayed by the county commissioners, feelings around, city's business and the city's purchase, and I just wanted to state that. But that was, a little disappointing and, surprising.
I would agree with you, and was, very disappointed.
I was sad by that, not that being sad matters to anybody else, but, being disappointed and being surprised by, the choice of words.
Question.
I guess sticking on the theme of Brooke County Commissioners. Today, there was a few people who presented, myself included, the idea of increasing the minimum wage. And the Board of County Commissioners, seem to have taken interest on that, and we requested that it be done jointly, so I think it's appropriate to have conversations with them to see what steps they'll take. Additionally, after meeting with Jackie with the whole housing debacle that was caused from that work session, came to a conclusion that they're not interested, and they repeated that in today's meeting, and they're not interested in getting rid of the Regional Housing Authority, which is great to hear, but there does seem to be some concerns around who's doing what, from their part, as well as I would say it's in our best interest from our part as well. So, I think it makes sense to perhaps try to schedule something a little bit more joint, maybe a joint work session with them to figure out what's going on and get on the same page, because we need this to work and not just, create unnecessary drama and rift in an application for DOLA. It's the last thing we would want, since we're already struggling with finding locations for the program to work anyways. So not sure when that would work for anyone, to be honest. But given that they have work sessions almost every day, but I do think it's worthwhile looking into, and I'm more than happy to facilitate that. That's the little things.
I think it's a good idea. I guess I'm surprised that there's still a misunderstanding. So that's just my feeling on it. We do have an IGA. Maybe it was just naive of me to think it felt clear, but apparently it's not.
Do you think, given the prior meeting facilitated by the EDC, was that a successful facilitation now?
No, absolutely not.
I mean, I know it was a contentious meeting,
That was
but
a total failure on the part of the EDC. I was shocked.
I was just wondering if there was another somewhat unrelated entity that could facilitate a city council.
Personal, I know they're not the biggest fan of the Housing Coalition, but my personal ask would be someone who knows what they're doing, and that would be Kirsty.
Yeah, I would agree with that. She's been involved for a long time.
Yeah.
She really knows what she's doing. And I think that would be that suggestion.
Somewhat voluntold in her, but.
You want to call it?
Yeah.
Maybe, but I think that would be the most appropriate
Okay,
course of action, so I can coordinate that, if that's city council's will.
thank you. How, everyone else okay with that? Yeah, see what you do, for sure. And everybody is gonna be there. I mean, it's a work session. If it has to be in the daytime, then you can get who can show up to show up.
Yeah.
But I'd say it certainly couldn't be the balance of this week. It has to be next week's time at the earliest.
At the earliest,
Yeah, got it. Okay, thank you. Anybody else? I've got a couple quick things. Cloud City High School was here yesterday. Their junior class, and they toured City Hall. They got to talk. They got to talk to me. They got to talk to Chief Valdez. Got to talk to Tony Medina. Got to talk to Aaron and Hannah. That's all. I mean, they were here. Their teachers really wanted to expose them to job opportunities, what the marketplace might have to offer as they are trying to finish up their high school education and move into adulthood. So, kind of interesting. Also, the Irish Memorials this last weekend.
I don't know who did or didn't get to see that. It was spectacular. I don't know, but it was one of the most special events I've ever seen in my life. And, Senator Bennett presented to Tiger Sullivan and I a flag that flew on the Colorado flag. And I had talked to Senator Bennett ahead of time, and I wanted that prize to go to Ty from Alamance, so they could take it back. And so we did that at the podium during the celebration. The Irish ambassador spoke, we had Consul General was there, Julie McCluskey, Speaker of the House, was there. She wasn't there in official capacity, she was there, but the other, she had a lot of pictures. So it was an amazing event. The parade was silly fun as usual, and then the Tabor Opera House had kind of an all Irish review that evening of various sorts, and that was pretty special as well. Anybody who wasn't exalted when that weekend was done is super good. There was some cost involved, so in terms of city council and letting you know what some of the expenditures were, we had $100 for one of the participants in the Tabor Opera House event. We did have the pipe band, the Denver pipe and drum was up here for the parade, and we helped fund that. We also, for our guests from Allahees, we funded some rooms for each of the three of them. So it was not very expensive. We did, for us, we didn't spend very much money, but we did participate, and I was pleased to hear it help. We also used our speaker system out there, and I have to thank Lifetime Fitness. They supplied the chairs once again. The community dinner, the weekend before, and then what was that, 2 weeks? I don't remember. And then they brought all the chairs out. In fact, there were 250 chairs. And then when I got up to speak, I also got to speak. When I got to speak and turned around, I couldn't believe my eyes. There were 250 chairs on the floor, and there were hundreds and hundreds of people behind those chairs. There were at least 500 people in it for that memorial dedication. It was something. That's it for me. Any other housekeeping matters? Okay, thank you very much. So this time we have public comments on items not on the agenda. If anyone would like to speak, please go up and introduce yourself. In council chambers, or if you're on Zoom, simply unmute and introduce yourself, and then you have 3 minutes to speak to city council. What's that?
This is not a beer.
Then you get to share. Okay, thank you very much. We go now to the consent agenda. This is approval of the September 5th, 2023 minutes. I just have one minor. There's a reference to. Said rotomil, it's ROTOMIL, one word. So you can just correct that spelling.
What page was that?
Oh, it's on page 2.
Okay.
Says street paving is the first sentence.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other changes? We need to move.
I've got one comment. This is Rebecca. Somewhere towards the end of it in the notes in the planning calendar, it said there's no LURA meeting this month. And I assume that means for the month of September. As far as I know, we still have one for October 5th. It just wasn't clear to me in the notes.
Thank you. Yeah, that's my understanding as well.
Thank you.
It's good to hear, 'cause I didn't go to the-
From the consent agenda, so make those changes.
No, please, just, let's have a motion, to approve the consent agenda with the changes to the minutes.
Okay.
Thank you.
I will make that moves to approve the consent agenda with the amended minutes.
So. Any other discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Bye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you. All were in favor. This time, we're in the city administrator's report. You have exactly 1 minute.
All right, well, I will talk quickly. There are a lot of things I would like to report on, all good news. I'd like to start with the police department. We have had several letters of commendation and recognition for the police department. So I'll not in any particular order. We received a letter from the Haskell County Sheriff's Office. Troy Briggs is the Haskell County Sheriff, and he personally wanted to thank Sergeant Ortega for his extra assistance that he provided due to an unexpected passing of their aunt on September 3rd. And at the time, Sergeant Ortega didn't even know that the family was a fellow law enforcement, but just provided his usual good customer service and care. And so that resulted in a thank you commendation letter for Sergeant Ortega. And I will make sure that gets in his personnel file. We also received a commendation letter for Officer Porzelt. Deputy Phillips of the Sheriff's Department and Officer Porzelt helped locate a missing woman. This was on September 1st, 2023. The woman was reported missing, and of course, her family was frantic. Officer Porzelt was recognized for her working together in collaboration with the Sheriff's Department and the family. The person wrote, I felt very reassured by their calming professional demeanors that they were going to find my wife. Their presence made a huge difference that evening in our lives. The woman was located about 40 miles away and reunited with her family. The last letter of recognition was a handwritten thank you note that I received, thanking Chief Chavez for helping two individuals with their vehicle over the race weekend. They were very, very pleased with his professionalism and his care in helping them with their problem, and just said essentially that he saved their race and their weekend for them. So just want to say thank you so much to the police department for your, as always, above and beyond care for visitors and locals alike. And also a special thank you to the police department and the streets department, because it has been a long season of events. We just had the parade this weekend, and everything has gone so smoothly. The streets department, the police department are working so well to make sure these events go fantastically. You know, I haven't heard any issues that have come about, and we've had a busy, busy season. So I want to personally thank the streets department and the police department for all of their hard work, because it has been a long season. In other good news, I met with Amy Tate. She has agreed to be the property manager for 809 Spruce. So that's fantastic news. We are working with her to get the documents set up and the processes set up so that she can manage that. She's excited to do it, and I am very, very happy that she's going to take that over, because I think it will be a great asset to have her be able to screen folks and handle all the inquiries. I get a lot of inquiries. We spend a lot of time having people fill out paperwork, and then for whatever reason, they decide not to stay in Leadville or whatever. And so this will be fantastic to have Amy be that person. Also wanted to tell you we had a wonderful grand opening ribbon cutting for the parklet on September 7th. It looks great. The murals look fantastic. There are a few punch list items still to do, and we're going to work out an agreement with the visitor center and everyone else to figure out who does what when. But the bathrooms are actually, the funniest part was there were actually people using the bathroom during our little ceremony, and it was kind of funny watching them kind of try and duck in and go to the bathroom and come out as we were doing the ribbon cutting. But I want to thank Nancy Bailey and Main Street for really making that happen and getting us that grant money, because that definitely was the make or break on that. So in other good news, I'm going to say this, and I really, really, really hope I don't jinx us. We have our salary survey, I'm hoping will be done by the end of the month. This is the one where I've been working on it for a long time. Lee and Burgess, they are the company that did the salary survey for Salida. I'm very excited that they are working on the salary survey, and we hope to have it in time for consideration for budget season. That is what I've been told. Like I said, it's likely I've just now jinxed it. But that is, I'm very hopeful about the salary survey being here in time for us for that. That ties into a reminder, we have our goal setting work session for next Tuesday. The departments are working on getting me their goals right now. I want to thank also Main Street, the Municipal Court, and Tabor Opera House, because we are going to include them. I did not last year, and I profusely apologize to them. They do end up being part of our budget and not just the contingency. So I thought it would be appropriate to include them in the budget process. So we will do a very similar format to last year, where each department gets to make a presentation just about their goals, and then opportunity for council to ask questions. And then this is the tee up to budget. So of course, we're going to be looking at what are the people, department goals and priorities, and those should tie into the budget requests. We will be setting those budget work sessions shortly. As you recall, we have 2 or 3 departments come each work session to talk about their budget. That ties into my next good announcement. My good news is that the city has hired a finance director. We have made an offer to Crystal Hewlett, and she has accepted. She is the former finance director for the county, and she will begin working with us on October 9th. And we will have, very hoping, preliminary budget to you all with Donna's help and lots and lots of support from Donna, because she's been fantastic for us. But we will have a preliminary budget for the city council to consider at our second meeting in October. Look back at my notes here, a few other things. Just a little bit more good news. We receive a severance tax, a portion of the collected severance tax, and that's sort of a tax on extractions. Includes oil, gas, coal, molybdenum, metallic minerals. Just wanted to pass along a little good news to you. Donna reported to us that we had budgeted for this quarter to receive $80,000, and we actually received close to $400,000 in severance. We're not sure why. I know the price of moly has gone up a little bit in the last quarter, but that might not explain all of it. But you'll see our sales tax numbers; those numbers are coming in strong. Our highway user tax fund dollars are coming in a little bit higher than projected for next year. So good news on the revenue side for those things. I feel good going into budget season that we're not going to be forced to have a gigantic red pen, that we will be, our revenues will be good, if not strong. And let's see. The mayor and I attended the Climax Q3 community meeting. The price of moly is down a little bit, but not significantly. The mine still has about 75 openings. That's significant to us because we compete for some types of openings with the mine. And so that is a little hard for us to see that they still have so many openings. But the good news is they will be making decision on the community investment fund applications. They received company-wide, so Freeport, the whole company, 88 and 21 for the Climax mine area. Approvals and denials will be released by October 30th. So the next step will be scheduling interviews. And just as a reminder, last year, the whole company ordered about $2.9 million for 41 projects in Colorado, Arizona, and Mexico, including about $310,000 in Lake and Summit and Chaffee County. So as you know, we have an ask out for the community center. So please keep your fingers crossed until October 30th for us. So let's see, that's all good news. I think my report was mostly good news, and I'm happy to answer any questions at this point.
Any questions for Lori?
What is our status with hiring a chief of police?
He asked what our
Yes.
status was for hiring chief.
Yeah, we are having that in process, as we have in process administrative assistant and streets first. So we are working on it. So if you and we are also hiring police officers. So if you know I really, really would love to get the word out. You know, we've definitely made some fabulous hires through word of mouth. So right now, administrative assistant, police officers are really a big need for us right now, and we have 2 streets worker vacancies. So please pass the word if you can.
I know Kenny's not here tonight, but he's still on board.
It's really actually hard to hear from a little bit further.
He said he just wanna make sure Ken's still on board.
Yes, he is. He is. He's been a fantastic asset. He is.
Okay, thank you.
Just under a minute, thank you.
Oh, I actually have one more.
Sorry.
Well, I was gonna say, and after tonight, hopefully we will have good news. As you see on your agenda, we have a city attorney decision to be made as well. So these are important positions to fill for us. So happy that we're making progress on some of these things.
So this may be Evan's last time with us. Thank you for being here.
Oh, of course, happy to be here.
Yeah, and I'm gonna when we get to that agenda item, I'm gonna do a little bit larger of a thank you for Linda and Evan and her firm. So
Great. If there are no more questions. Human resources.
Human resources. Well, Lori got one of my positive things I was gonna talk about. Compensation survey, that she said is gonna be here by the end of the month, and that's very exciting. We've also been working with Sean at Lexipol for our employee handbook for the past 3 or 4 weeks, and we spent about an hour once a week with him, going over all of the sections for that, and it seems to be a very thorough meeting every time we've been in there. I think it's gonna be very nice once it's completed. And that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Erin? The employee handbook. It was 19 pages before. How many pages is it gonna be now?
We'll find out.
It's more than 19.
I'm gonna take a wild guess and say we're gonna be in the triple digits.
Huh?
Yeah, you know, what's nice about this is that it is not pieces of paper, it's online, and our handbook doesn't address so many things. When we go to try and figure out what the rule is about anything, or what employees have been informed about FMLA leave or anything else, we find that our employee handbook is lacking. Most of the places I've worked that have any substantial employee handbook, it covers things that our handbook does not, so it's not very helpful for us. And not have an answer to what are the rules on holding outside employment? What are the rules on taking FMLA leave? What are the rules on social media? So we're really behind the curve on that.
Okay, thank you. I can hardly wait to see him check the box because I have read the following procedures. Police department.
Too much. The police department provided coverage for boom days and 100-mile bike race and 100-mile run race. No serious incidents have occurred. A couple fights here and there, but nothing too major. We only had to tow about 2 cars, which was good. There's a lot of it's one new thing, one app we have. We can find people a lot better, find the numbers. You're able to call them to get them to move cars, stuff like that. So we only had two people, which is a big surprise, which is great news. And about $100 worth of parking tickets that month. So very little parking tickets there for that month for having to move the cars. And we just received some videos from the Leadville Race Series, from the director of the race series. Great,
good support.
thank you. I noticed on the door that they said they weren't doing fingerprinting.
Yeah, our machine is down.
Okay,
We had Dan come up here, our IT guy.
yeah,
And he was able to throw this all day trying to figure it out. I'm not sure what day it was, but there's some kind of app that went down or something like that, and so he's trying to figure that out. I'm hoping, so far he hasn't had any luck right now,
well,
so
man,
we just told people either go over across the street. We have fingerprints to listen back.
but they will do it over there?
Yeah, I think they do over there.
Okay, didn't know that. I know for a while, like, they weren't doing any at all.
Yeah, I think they got the machines fixed.
Okay.
Someone I told us this, so I'm not.
All right, good, glad to hear it. Any questions for Officer Hanson? All right, thank you very much, Rick. You don't have to stick around if you don't want to. It's all up to you.
I'm gonna say play.
All right, next up, your fire department.
Good evening, everybody. I'd like to start out, we got a donation from CMC, we got 2 smart boards. One's gonna be put in Station 2, one we get to Public Works, and then another one we're gonna try to figure out some kind of training board somewhere either at Station 1 or at the training facility in the future. So that was a great donation from CMC, because when I looked into those smart
Those
boards,
new boards or?
they were the ones that they're replacing out of CMC.
Okay,
The technology's still good, but they needed an upgrade and we needed some, so
nice.
I'm glad we made that connection. I am gonna be talking to Chief Chavez and others about their remaining VA furniture that we have down in Station 2. Public Works did take some of it already, and there's other entities that I'm in contact with and maybe try to furnish their offices, and we'll see what we can do about the police department. I will also talk to Chief Chavez about the Jeep Liberty that's out in the parking lot. We can hopefully get rid of that thing, and we will
Could
have
you
fun
use that
with
at
it.
the training center? Could
We
you
will.
cut it pieces?
We will, we'll cut it to pieces and we will probably burn that thing,
I don't know. it's
just
pretty radical.
for the fun of it. Well, it's really good training, but it will be fun, because of the nature of it. So hopefully that Jeep Liberty won't be taking any space up in the parking lot.
Keep in mind, everybody, for those who don't know, we got it for,
Yeah.
of course, we spent some money trying to keep it running, that's a different story, but yeah, it has no value.
No, yeah, no. And I'll just need the title for it.
That's true, right?
So Station 2, the certificate of occupancy hasn't been fixed, the actual formatting on it and the verbiage is correct now, so we do have one. We set a date for October 14th from 2 to 5 for the grand opening. I did put it on the city calendar. Lori actually put it on there, so it is on the calendar, so please make yourself available if you can attend that. I believe it'll be a great function. Long time coming. Currently, we have a resource order to help our federal partners out at the bottom of Mount Shavano. They're doing a prescribed burn. We're probably gonna leave sometime this week with 4 of our personnel, Fritz, Lesky, Bailey, and DePietro. So we're gonna go down there in the Type 3 engine and support them in a prescribed burn that they're gonna do at the bottom of Mount Shavano.
So that's federal, so we'll get covered,
Correct.
okay, thank you.
Yep. We made sure to get a contract for that. The VFA grant, we got a reimbursement for $5,004.13. That was a 50% match under, for VHF radios. That's the ones we use for wildlands. So that was not the last reimbursement that we'll receive this year, because I got to do another one for AFG and another one for Safer, but we did receive that one, so that's good. I was cleared by the management board to start the RFP process for the Type 6 engine. We had a discussion about that because of the delay in chassis, and it might take a very long time. We obviously have not made a decision on whether we're gonna go forward with that capital purchase yet, but I think that the more information I can bring to council and the county commissioners on what that cost is gonna look like, and you know, the time frame of being able to replace some of our Type 6 engines or get an additional one to our fleet. If we can start that process now, we'll be ahead of the game, because I've heard anywhere from 24 months out for a piece of equipment. My suggestion will be that because we only have one more payment on the tactical tender out of the fire fund balance, that one is, the last payment on that one is in October of, next year. Then we should maybe, just start paying for the type 6 engine out of the fire fund balance and not out of the general funds. And then just start that payment after we put, some money down on the piece of equipment. So. Let's see, we're gonna continue with our hiring processes currently right now. We hired Luke Ingalls. He was one of our reserves, went through a fire academy 2 years ago. And so he is going to be one of our hired career members. We just went through that process and hired him. And now we're gonna do our engineer internal process and our captain's internal process. The captain's process starts this Friday. So we'll be having some promotions within the agency. And I think that is all that I have in a nutshell, unless you have any questions. Did I do good?
The fire department. Guys, I do have one, I never asked you this before, but, you know, they put the tower up on the side a couple of years ago. Has it made a difference on Highway 82? That was the point, was to complete coverage throughout the county.
This, the radio tower you're talking about, it's still not, operational. It's not.
Yeah,
that's the
section 106. Oh, I knew that we were doing section 106, but the thing was built like 2
Yes.
years ago.
Yes, they had,
No antenna, it doesn't have FCC approval, so it's not, there's not any antenna on.
What do they do?
They're seeking the FCC approval right now. Right.
yeah,
Okay,
and well, we hope to have better radio service when that.
okay,
That's good.
I just didn't know what the result had been, that's all. So the result has been, no, it's not better.
And ultimately, how we get better service for radio up Independence Pass 82, that area is actually build a tower on Station 2. Because, you know, that was a cut in the budget when we actually built
Station 2
Station 2.
is pretty low, we'll go over that.
It's a 40-foot tower that was supposed to be built on Station 2, but it was cut out of the budget. The tower was never built on Station 2, so if we would build the 40-foot tower and then put an antenna up on that, then we would have that range, because it would ping from this one to that one to the one in Granite. And up.
Oh, so we can see Granite, it can't see Twin Lakes.
Right, it won't, Granite doesn't go up, and it would be able to go up Independence Pass.
Okay,
That area.
all right,
So we'll be hopeful for that in the future.
all right.
What would it cost for a tower like that?
It's, the last I checked, it was, 195,000.
Thank you. Any other questions for the fire department? Thank you very much, Chief.
Thank you.
One step at a time, keep going forward.
No, heck yeah. We do it.
Okay, great. Streets department. We don't have work with the streets here. They did,
Yep.
of course, they did. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, Tony did let me know he was unavailable to attend this night, this evening. So I wanted to just highlight some of the paving work and like where we are with that. So we will not be able to do a James Street this season. Excel Energy has let us know that they are going to be working on James Street still, and so it doesn't make any sense to pave that and have it be torn up. So the streets department is going to focus on some patching work before the end of the season. And as you know, 8th Street has been completed, and the team is just working on some culvert work at this point in time. So a few places that have been identified that need some work that we're going to try and get done before the winter season, and do the best we can before the snow starts flying. So Mayor, I didn't, if you have further updates on anything in addition.
No, just 8th Street, they did the block on 7th Street, the rain washed along the dirt of the sides, I think they tried to do some repair there. They did Rotor Mill, in the last month, I think,
on the 12th Street, between Orange and Ash, which was dirt. They also did Orange and Ash, and those blocks right off of 12th Street, so they rotovilled all that. They also rotovilled Alder all the way from Second Street, all the way up and around to where it drops back down. And I think they went across that lower, I'm not even sure what that lower road is, below Alder. And they rotovilled all those. It's not asphalt, but it's a lot better than the dirt. So, it's progress of the sort. But they put in a lot of work this summer. Done a nice job. Any questions about the street project? Okay, thank you. Next up, animal shelter, Caitlin.
Hello, everyone. So quick statistics that jump out pretty quickly. We had 9 impounds for the city last month. 8 of those were returned to owners. For the county, we had 26 surrenders, 2 dogs, 4 cats, 1 feral cat, 15 kittens, and then 4 kittens came from a guest who was staying here for about 2 months camping, from my understanding, who had kittens that were born in her vehicle. So lots and lots of surrenders last month. We had 11 county impounds and then 10 returned to owners from that. So we had 1 unclaimed stray from the impounds for the city and 4 unclaimed strays in total from the county. So those could be the holds like we picked up from people passing away and next of kin didn't claim it. And that's why those numbers, the RTOs and the unclaimed strays, don't always match up. Unfortunately, we did have 1 euthanasia. It was a cat that was not doing well. That was picked up as a stray within the city limits. We did have 13 adoptions, and we transferred 1 dog out back to Summit County Animal Shelter. So it was adopted from their facility, found as a stray in the county. The sheriff's department brought it in. It was pretty emaciated, and after we held it, some of their workers saw it on our Facebook page, and so they transferred it back to their facility. To date, we've had 214 animals come through our doors. So thankfully, number 214 went home right before we closed. For our September yard sale, it was on the 2nd. We made over $300. And then we have a $3,000 grant, not scholarship, from Maddie's fund. So that will go towards operational budget and to help the community for community assistance. So really quickly, we have 90 bags of dog food that were donated from Big R. We only have 2 left, so those went pretty quickly and helped the community. We had a $175 donation in honor of Megan Swisher that will go directly to the animals, and then a $500 donation in honor of Dawn Sweet that will go to help the cats and kittens in her care.
Thank you. Any questions for Caitlin? What's your animal population in the shelter right now?
Off the top of my head, $18 currently in the shelter.
Are most of those kittens in?
We still have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 13 kittens from the 19 kittens that we had. We have 1 dog up for adoption, 2 dogs up for adoption, 1 dog that's still on a hold, 1 dog that was brought in last night from law enforcement that we're trying to make contact with the owners because our understanding is they want to surrender it. And then actually 1 cat in foster.
Thank you. Daniel wants all the kittens, just deliver them to her house. Are there any other questions for the animal shelter? Thank you, Caitlin. Next up, Deputy City Clerk.
All right, nothing too exciting. Floyd's finished their paperwork and received their new retail dispensary license. I gave the owner of Roots and the owner of Sun Theory the official approval from the city for them to get their state license. Once they give their state license to us, then I can approve their local license. I think they've already started some changes over there. at the store itself, and then for short-term rentals, we are at capacity for the year, finally, and, I think that's it.
I have a question.
Yes.
I have, a person who lives next door to a house that is long-term rented, throughout kind of like the school year. She thinks it's being rented to CNC students and there's no problem there except that it's 5 or 6 people living in this one rental with 5 or 6 vehicles. And so I just didn't know if there were any rules around that or anything that we could do to ease that, because 5 or 6 cars for one house.
I would have to look at the municipal code to see what's.
Unfortunately, we don't have a capacity clause in the municipal code.
This is for long-term residential use.
So yes,
The use.
what I understand is it's a VRBO that they long-term rent it during the school year or, September to May. And then they short-term rent it in the summer, I think.
Okay, under the zoning code, under single-family residential use, there is a definition for family. Some cities have a maximum limit on the number of unrelated individuals that can meet that definition of family. The city level does not. So some cities, for example, have five or more unrelated are not allowed. We do not have that in our definitions. So from a zoning perspective, we don't have a restriction.
Could that be something we might consider as we also look at design standards within city limits?
Yeah.
So we gotta change code, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well,
One of the things I was gonna say, one of the reasons, a lot of cities have moved away from regulating how many unrelated people can live, or, unrelated people can live together, is just a shortage of housing. And I think Councilmember Grant specifically talking about parking rather than housing. And so I think, we don't have a limit of cars per dwelling for single family homes. But there is, I believe we have a number of days limit that you can park on the street, on our municipal streets. So you can't park a car for a month and that the cars need to be moved. So I think maybe looking at addressing the parking situation would be, I think what Councilmember Grant, if that's what you're saying, addressing the number of cars is the issue.
Correct. It's the renters are not causing any issue to this person. It's strictly the number of cars, and I don't believe they're being parked for an extended period of time. They're being used, but still 5 or 6 cars. And then if you happen to have any friends over, that grows to 7, 8, or 9 cars. That's a significant impact on that one block.
Especially you.
It's actually not my block, but it's not, but yes, it would be a significant impact on West 7. This is actually E6.
We could look at that under the zoning chapter from a parking standpoint, either with the community housing chapter or just generally for parking. Perhaps with, you could require a minimum number of paved spaces. I mean, you want to approach that very carefully because a lot of parking spaces in Level are not paved. But I would support Lori in saying, looking at it from that standpoint, a lot of going towards affordability and availability of housing, and the definition of family, nuclear family has changed, and unrelated individuals are often forming families and stuff. So we probably want to look at it from the parking standpoint versus from the traditional family standpoint.
As we've learned from Christian and others, that it falls into the very definition of homelessness.
Right.
When people are doubling and tripling out.
Address the impacts, not so much.
Gotcha. Okay.
And that was never my intent, was to
Understood.
address that. I was just bringing concern of a citizen back to her.
Yeah, I'll make a note to look at.
Okay, thank you.
I'm proud, I didn't have to say anything. You guys can put it on there.
That's fact. It's all good.
No, that was it.
Okay, I just want to say Floyd's retail dispensary, Floyd led as part of the Irish weekend, Floyd led a life club. For everybody on Sunday. So just a run a little trip, so it was just, I couldn't do that, it's part of the festivity. Okay, building department, this is just the report we get from Ann.
There was a little dip in permits in July, but it's, you know, back up in August and September. You'll note. Kind of just consistent with the rest of the year. You know, after building permitting picks up in March.
I really wish she would make this print smaller.
Okay. Next up, planning department.
All right, oh, sorry.
Oh, Rebecca. yes,
That's okay.
please.
I just had a quick one on the building permits. Shape, I took a look at the table that you provided. Is there a way to identify which of those permits are for properties within the urban renewal district? I think it'll just be important for the city to be able to share that information with the new county tax assessor so that we're ensuring that any improvements, no matter how minor, are included in the incremental improvement for the tax.
I don't know, but I will ask.
I will tell you this,
Ask the building
Rebecca, we currently have the county's assessed value for the Laura Urban Renewal Plan under review by the assessor. I've asked for that. I took the paperwork. I also sent it to Carrie Bartow, who's supposed to be working on this. I have not heard back from her, but Mark Wadsworth has said he now has a clearly defined boundaries and parcels in the urban renewal plan, and he will reevaluate, you know, those numbers, because I felt like the numbers were way off. So we'll see where we go with that. But hopefully he will also capture any new development that's taking place within the urban renewal plan.
Yeah, I think that'd be helpful. I bring it up because I've sat through the Colorado Municipal League little short course, noon hour course on urban renewal districts. And one of their recommendations is that the city and county work very closely together to ensure that the tax assessor can capture any improvements.
Right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Lot to discuss. I'll be trying to be brief. In terms of pre-applications, things that might be upcoming, we have a change of use for a nail salon on Chestnut Street, so that will be coming to council for conditional use permit. Setting on pre-application meeting for the Cooperativa Nueva Union's electrification pilot project. Thought that was a great meeting. This is basically trying to provide energy efficiency and resiliency to remote home parks, which definitely provides affordability housing component to our city. In terms of pending applications, the main update is that the Community Justice Center application, the applications have formally been withdrawn. This is, they're trying to evaluate the scope of the project and relating to financing. So, so we didn't have to keep continuing the public hearing application, which happened back in February. That has been formally withdrawn, and they'll just reapply if they're ready to proceed with their entitlements. As you probably saw in the building permitting report, a lot of building permit applications that are coming in, so I signed off on those. I reviewed those. A lot of modular. I've had 1, 2, 3 modular homes building permit applications within the past month, so it's definitely a large part of our new construction. We did have an authorization for a demolition of the historic structure on East 6th Street. And just to make sure I'm on the same page with the fire department, Captain Bull and I'll have Fire Marshal Bull and I have a meeting tomorrow just to talk about exemptions under both the historic district demolition moratorium and the new code. To make sure we're just on the same page there. So we're gonna meet tomorrow on that. In terms of construction, again, this is gonna be mostly updating on the rail yard. So regarding phase 1 and the PUD, so it's the custom zoning document for that development. The city council approved a PUD amendment for phase 1 for the Laura parcel, for the 12-unit apartment building. And that passes an ordinance. The city council had a conditional approval that the PUD be amended per that ordinance. And then actually that happened just a few weeks before I started. So I picked up on that, and we're having the Pelona architects and urbanists, we're having them create that amendment, that sort of PUD document, that zoning document, so I can record that. So it's more of a housekeeping item. But it's important for the building permit application for the 12 units that the Chaffey Housing Trust will be applying for. Regarding the subdivision improvement agreement, I did receive a written request from High Country Developers in Northcraft Neighborhoods to do an additional amendment to the PUD amendment that council just approved a few months ago. I think long story short, Northcraft wants to take his particular lots out. But the public improvements that were tied to his lots, he wants to construct them sooner versus, so like now, versus later next summer. That's gonna be coming to council, I think in some format here in the next few meetings, so more on that later. Regarding the storm sewer and drainage, so my main update, in your packet, I've included the letters that I provided to both the county and to High Country Developers, since the last time I updated you on this, since we discussed this back in August. There was a deadline given to High Country Developers to commence construction, which was 2 weeks from the letter, and then a month to fully comply to complete the corrections. As of today, those corrections began over the weekend, and I guess technically they began a few weeks ago when the plate was installed, but they are not complete. There's definitely more work to do. So good news is the developer is aware and they are constructing, they're making the corrections. They've made significant excavation to the north detention basin, but there is more to do. And so I'm working with both the city attorney's office and the building department on preparing a stop work order. And I'm really hoping that we don't have to use it, but we have to get all of these improvements constructed now because they're past the deadline. We have received 3 quarter requests, and I've had phone calls from attorneys regarding the status of this. So this is a hot topic and there are affected parties. Regarding phase 2, I think you'll maybe remember Christie's comment in the short-term rental work session about the phase 2 PUD amendment not being recorded. I've been working with Pelham Architects and Urbanists to get that PUD, those conditions of approval met, and they have submitted that document. I just have to finally review it and get it recorded. That is important because one of those conditions of approval was that the city and the developer enter into a development agreement for the deed restriction of 5 lots in phase 2, and that's the affordable housing component for phase 2. So that's why that's important. So
I'd have to ask that be 1 lot, 100 by 105 was what we requested, but it's platted, not 5 lots, but 1. So I'd like to go over that with you tomorrow.
Sure.
Okay.
All right. In terms of code amendments, just an update since we last met with the Planning and Zoning Commission in the joint work session, is that we're basically conducting additional work sessions with the P&Z to respond to the council's comments and concerns. And the P&Z really would like to see me get a grant for a consultant to do this work so we keep this moving. So I'm just kind of not working on this in my spare time. So there's a DOLA grant available that with a deadline of October, so I am going to be pursuing that. And we are working to address the council members' comments, and we'll continue to conduct work sessions to review those comments and respond. In your packet, I've included just a quick update on the Lake County's application they have received for the Gateway development. This is for a PUD and sketch plan. So sketch plan is the first step of the subdivision process. It has to go through sketch plan, preliminary plan, and final plat. So essentially it's the first of 3 public hearings. And this is for a 400 unit, 75% deed restricted development on a 44-acre property that's basically just north of the intersection of 24 and 91. I have fully reviewed the application documents, and I have sent a comment letter today. The P&Z reviewed this last week, and I incorporated their comments into that comment letter. My comments were primarily focused, or our comment letter was primarily focused on opportunities for multimodal connection between this development and the city, recognizing that there will be traffic impacts, and currently there's not any kind of pedestrian or bike infrastructure between the city and this development. development, they do have, letters from both Eco Transit and from Summit Stage saying that both agencies are, willing to provide transit service to this development. So that's, excellent news, and there's a transit stop, proposed that's integral to the development, so that this will be, provide, full transit service.
So proposing just one stop?
One stop.
Okay, thank you.
And I'm assuming that's gonna go both ways.
Gotcha.
from my understanding. So, I can include my comment letter, to the council in another packet, but, primarily regarding connectivity. I also, push for, public trail easements with, kind of a perimeter trail easement within this development, so, this development could have the opportunity to connect to future trails, future trail easements that, even if it's decades down the road. So more to come on that. I'll continue to keep the council, looped in on whatever I hear on that. Regarding the telecommunications facility on the east side, and we just briefly discussed earlier, we did receive a request for comments from the county's consultant for the section 106 review. And the HPC did review that and provide comments, regarding, adverse effect and no adverse effect to that consultant.
We also discussed direct and indirect effects to
Yeah.
historic designations.
It was, the HPC found that tower, it's an existing tower, that just hasn't been connected, so it has to go through the FCC process to get connected. The HPC found no direct effects, which means there's no construction on historic property on the site. But it was split, the majority of the HPC found, potential for adverse and indirect effects, basically visual effects from the historic district. This is kind of a preliminary step in the section 106 process. It still has to go through state review. Last couple of things regarding the parking lots, the city parking lots and the ADA compliance, our three parking lots off of Harrison. We do have the consultant, it's in their work queue to come up with plans to bring our parking lots into ADA compliance. So they'll be working on that within the next month or two to have site plans to give to the streets department for, so those amendments can be made, corrections can be made next summer, in the cities with the city's work program. And then last update is regarding the cultural resource surveys for the historic district. There's going to be a kickoff meeting with Metcalf Archaeology, the consultants providing these surveys being paid for by the grant. That kickoff meeting will be on October 24th. And I think we're pushing to use the space in the old church across the street for that meeting. That is it for planning. You have a longer packet for me because I did include those letters, but I want to make sure the council had ready access to those letters if needed, because those letters have been part of the core requests we've received. And the core request has been pretty extensive, so I can take any questions for planning.
Any questions for Chapin?
I've got a couple, Chapin.
Yes, please.
I finally figured out how to raise my hand in the screen. One, I know that the city sent a letter to the county regarding the storm sewer, and you described very handily what the rail yard is doing. Have we heard any kind of response from the county?
Yes, yeah, the county has basically said, thank you for looking into this and kind of like identifying what the city is going to do. I think the county manager basically said that they're going to try to schedule another meeting of the minds to discuss this, but and I think both mayor and myself at least would be included in that meeting. That meeting has not been scheduled yet.
Okay, great. I just wanted to make sure it didn't languish until the next time it rained or the snow melted. And then regarding the ADA parking lots, I know the county raised that issue with a couple of the council members about a month ago. Can we follow up with Mr. Bergman at the county to make sure that he's aware of the steps that the city is taking?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
That'd be great. Thanks.
I'd also like to say along the lines of Rebecca's comments that this letter to the county is very thorough, very detailed, and really, really well documented. So I appreciate that. There's one thing in there, and I could be wrong, so correct me. You refer to the boundaries as part of the annexation from North Poplar, going to North Poplar. And to me, that's not correct. It's North Poplar is that street that's off is down the hill. So the boundary is only to the outside of Poplar.
not the North Poplar.
Yeah, you're correct. I think my intention there was basically to talk about what we know as Highway 24. And so it's to the west side of Highway 24 is the
It
annexation.
definitely is, yeah, anyway, just that's a nuance that I don't want them to come back and say, well, you said it was North Poplar. It's not.
Yeah, I think that's my fault. I think the Poplar Street turns into Highway 24, but then there's a separate North Poplar Street, and so.
Yeah, North Poplar's like 100 feet off
Right, when we're talking about the annexation boundaries,
differentiate
definitely
those two is
not
gonna
North Poplar
be
Street.
really important.
Yeah.
Where the old bowling alley is, that's where the original Poplar Street curved before they put in the highway.
Right.
So that is Poplar.
Yeah, the third or fourth step of that annexation was to the west side.
Maybe, but not according to our city map and our city annexation map, Poplar runs straight up Highway 24. And that North Poplar is the street there that goes by now the top of it.
Well, from the old maps I looked at, that was the end of the Poplar right there.
Okay.
Then it was the old highway.
But if that comes up as a point of confusion, I'm
That's
trying to clarify that. Thank you.
Just maybe notice. Any questions for Shane? Thank you very much. Next up, sales tax comparison, you can see it, from the small.
Yeah, so it's fantastic news again. You can see those are the up-to-date numbers that we just received from the county. And yet again, good news, above and beyond our projections, which always makes us happy. So we're in great shape, and we were a little bit worried about the summer. And I think a couple months ago, we were thinking the town looked busy, but we weren't seeing that huge of an increase in sales tax. But looks, like the last month was a very good month for sales tax.
Yeah, we're still well above projection, well above budget. Okay. Financials, Lori, do you want to talk about those? I've also done a quick analysis.
Please go ahead, Mayor.
Just in terms of the financials, I talked to Donna this afternoon. I said, how close are we to caught up in terms of looking at these financials? She said very close. That she's put in a lot of work in the last 3 weekends. She's pretty much caught up on payables. And so these are fairly accurate in terms of expense related analysis. And every department is under, actually well under their budget, 75% of the year, end of August. No, I'm sorry, that's 66%. But everybody's still under, police department is 64.8, street department at 60.9, animal shelter at 57.4, and fire department 59.5. And of course, the reason is everybody has been undermanned all year to some extent. So the good news is the budget looks good. The bad news is the budget looks good. Any questions about the financials? I add one more thing. The CTF fund, it shows that we're 7,000 underwater, but we're still expecting money before the end of the year. But we don't have much in the way of a reserve at this point. We won't have much in the way of reserve at the end of the year. So it'll be yeah.
And in part, Mayor, as you recall, we did make a commitment to the Tabor Opera House so they could finish some of that electrical work, and that is one of the requests that just put us a little over for the time being on that. I do believe they requested about $5,000 from us, and so that was just important work for them to be able to finish this season. So we will catch up, but that is part of the reason why and again, some of that money, there's the restrictions on how that money can be spent. It can't be spent on everything. It needs to be spent on essentially, public facilities within certain categories. And so when we find opportunities that we're able to use that money, it's nice to be able to put it towards good use, like the Tabor Opera House.
Okay. Next up, we pay the bills. I did want to kind of point out a new more pages as well. We have 3 charges for paving.
one on 8th Street, one on 7th Street, and then the actual asphalt itself. And I didn't actually add all these up together, but, looks like about $145,000 out of our $200,000 budget has been spent on paving. Good thing, those bills are good.
There's so many things.
Oh,
So many things.
no, I've never seen, it's 18 pieces of bread. If we just didn't pay it, so our budget would be even better.
Right. Except these have already been paid.
Yeah, I know. Are there any questions or concerns about, any of the bills? Well, Dan, so he's not gonna have the answer for me. There was a $2,721 charge for air and light trailer. Remember, we talked about that, and he said he thought that it was gonna be covered by another fund, you know, from maybe Chaffey County, but we've got a bill here. I just would like to know, is that gonna be reimbursed? I guess is my question. I don't know the answer. Okay, everybody's had a chance to review. I would entertain those for bills.
Moves to pay the bills.
Grant seconds.
Is there any other discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you. All in favor? Okay, at this time, we have the Economic Development Corporation, presentation.
Thanks for the question. Do we look at that? It's even up. I think we have the. You want me to zoom in? You're amazing. I don't necessarily have to see it.
Thank you. Before we get started, and I wish that the chief were here and a few other folks, I did want to just give a big shout out. We just got through the race series for the summer, and it was a spectacular, supportive on that showing, just in terms of our law enforcement, our city roads and bridges, city in general, just the whole. Anybody who looked up and down 6th Street had many comments about our law enforcement and the support that we have there and the safety that was super increased and potentially undeniably the strongest it's ever been. So just wanted to give a shout out on that. We'll have an AAR and all of that, but it was a phenomenal support. We have things that we can always do better, but just a big shout out and thank you to the council and all the behind the scenes on that piece. On the EDC side of things, as all of us know, I think we're going into 10 months of realigning, and if it's been painful for anybody else, please know that it has been for us too. And a large part of that has been, we discovered that it was really getting our board of directors aligned. And I think for all of us to sort of see what it means to be that board of directors and to be aligned in driving these EDC together. And through that process, we came out of that collectively, and I will say that it's been a lot about relationship and getting to know one another. I think prior to this, we might be in the strongest place as a board, and it's really this process that's helped us understand one another and come together in a place where now if you talk to anybody on that team, they're gonna tell you collective impact is the only way to go. But if you had talked to us in the first few months of the process, it was not clear where we were headed. And I don't think that that team was clear on how to be in the driver's seat of who we were hiring. And to that end, with Nancy and our previous folks, you know, I think our board was not in a position to best lead. That's one of our things that came out of this time. Along with our board being much more aligned and very clear about our direction. We are in a very clear mission place, so it's, as it is said there, you guys can probably all read that better than I can, so I don't need to read it for you. Unless you want the mayor to read it, I could have him read it for you.
Thank you, Bill.
So from there, if you want to go to the next slide, I think kind of where we've ended up is in this collective impact model, which is right now, regionally, statewide, nationally, this is a very proactive model that's being picked up and utilized. I think an understanding that we can no longer compete over resources and how are we going to work together at these pieces. And so a big piece of that is coming together, as it says, to address the needs and interests of the collective whole. And in my version of that, it's kind of what democracy means, right? It's us showing up and representing, and the EDC will be in a very neutral role. But it is working to bring all the key stakeholders together and making sure that as we work through some of the big pieces of workforce, childcare, school, enrollments, housing, like all the things that we know are issues, that the EDC will be hopefully in a leading space of making sure that we have all the voices together and helping minimize the duplicative efforts that we've had. And really helping to bridge those communications that we can move together and effectively build capacity, not only in those areas, but in all of our organizations, businesses. That would be one of the primary focuses, is capacity building and elevating Leadville overall. So elevating all of Lake County, Leadville, Twin Lakes, strengthening all those organizations and businesses. It will also be, we will work at being the data collection and holding space so that when we have a feasibility study that needs to happen, we all know where it lives and we know that we can come to the EDC and they will get behind helping get that done, whether it is currently one on the rec center, on what do we really need in this community, that the EDC will take a firm space in that, will take a firm stand in that space. And on a very small level, like right now, we're looking at a couple very distinct projects to kind of set the tone and set the pace. And one of those has been really looking at this group together that you see here. So we have tourism, we have the visitor center, we have Main Street, we have the chamber. And just like when the EDC started getting together, when we all started getting together, it was a little funky at first. And part of this whole collective impact model is that we have been able to take the work that's been done before by this team and take it to the next level and really look at how we're not going to compete for resources. So that's one example. Many of you were involved or there for last week's initial kind of trying to get a bunch more stakeholders in the room after the pool rehab was taken off the ballot, and we pick up the ball and help bring those conversations and keep them moving together. The next round of that conversation on the rec center is on Monday, the 25th. And we will continue to show up in that space of trying to make sure that we've got all those voices and work closely with all entities, city and county, to help us come up with what is the right, in this example, rec center. But these are just basic models of putting our house in order, if you will, in a way, in terms of making sure that Main Street is functioning well, that chamber, when it's had some struggles in the past, that we are looking at what are the ways forward to support them. And so what you're not going to see is the EDC coming to you and saying, hey, we want the same resources and the same money. In fact, tonight we really are strongly supporting the chamber to take, to propose and I'm not going to steal Tracy's thunder on this, but to come forward to grab some of, to put a proposal towards you in terms of some of the money that's earmarked for EDC work for this year. You will see us next year show up in support of both the chamber and the Main Street program. And the reason, what is the importance of this? This is where I think the whole focus about elevating and making sure that all of our organizations are functioning strongly means that suddenly tourism isn't trying to handle all these things. Last year, before November, it was the EDC trying to handle all these things, but that we have each one of these groups clearly functioning at their greatest potential. And together we are elevating Leadville all through the lens of what this community, the city, the county government want. So we are strongly in support of seeing some of this funding in the next 2 years, specifically going towards these entities to ensure that they are functioning to their greatest degree. I'm going to let Tracy tell you about how and why, but this is what you're going to see more of. Our final strategy meeting is on October 13th, and I will just say this team, the board has been through many long days. It hasn't been just one, it's been multiples. We're not quite there yet, but our final one will be the kind of the bulk of our board structure and what that will look like. And again, we're looking at models that do not compete for resources around business memberships, but how do we work with this team to ensure that those are strategically in the right location, the right lane? And in that same vein, that our board is the best functioning representation of this community that it can be as well. And currently it's in a pretty strong place, which is very exciting, but we're going to do a solid rollout of this in the next 2 months, or certainly before Christmas, so you'll see that before the end of the year, that we will have you all invited along with the rest of the community, and we will do a full unveiling of what we've come out with is a very strategic 3-month, 1 year, 3 year, 5 years goal in terms of our KPIs and what we will deliver and how you can measure it, how you can know that we've actually performed those pieces. And a lot of it is geared at this capacity building, and it's geared at what an EDC, by us functioning at the level we should be. We can focus on EDC, where the chamber can focus on business support, tourism can really focus on tourism, Main Street can really hold the container around our historic district, and that we'll work together with those pieces. The visitor center can make sure that all those visitors are getting exactly what they belong with the education that they need, but we will unveil all these pieces in a more formal setting. I wanted tonight to just share a little bit about where we've been and where we're going. And knowing that budgets are coming out, to be clear that we put in front of you, kind of a joint collaborative approach here in terms of, we want to see the chamber get really functional, and we have worked together solidly at how to make that happen. And essentially, I'm going to turn that over to Tracy at this point, unless there's questions for me on the EDC currently. But you will see this fully unveiled and the full model moving forward. You'll see us out doing things at this point, as we already are. But we do have a couple more steps to go to formalize these pieces. You won't see us asking for that money in 2023. We did talk about that. This is the last session I was here. And we're planning to support Main Street and the chamber to make sure they're strong in 2024, so that we have everybody's lanes working super well. And we'll take that model and we'll spread it out into the next steps beyond that, but we got to start with this basic one and get these pieces really strong and supportive. Any questions for me on that?
Any questions? Whichever. You mentioned specifically leading to bring all the voices together. And that's a very nice and well statement, but I just don't know what that means really. Like, it's nice in concept, but like, to where? To what? Why?
Actually, come join us on Monday the 25th of CMC, and you'll start to get a picture.
Okay.
I think it's a fair question. My point is, I don't think our board knew either until we started to dive into this. I think it's.
As long as it seems like you're not, oh yeah, we're gonna do that, and then just leave it at that.
We've already been starting that process, so I'd love to have you join us.
I would say this, to your point, that meeting on the 25th has to be properly facilitated. Sorry. Don't need to be insulting, but the last meeting was a train wreck. And it was as awful a meeting as I've ever been in my life. That having been said, I need a facilitator who's gonna stick to the agenda and keep people from attacking each other in the meeting.
I'd be happy to discuss that with you.
Thank you, I'd love to.
That's no time.
Do we have a hand? Rebecca, please.
Thank you. So Tamara, it may be too early for me to ask it, but I heard you talk about trying to establish very distinct roles for each of the organizations, EDC, Chamber, Main Street, Visitor Center. And then you also talked about 1 year, 3 year, 5 year goals. So does the EDC itself have any short, mid, and long range goals? I heard you talk about the rec center, but can you talk about anything else about economic development at this point in time, or are you still working on pulling your board together and you haven't really thought about short, mid, and long term goals?
We have thought about it, Rebecca, but I'd like to unveil that together with our full board when we're kind of with a finished report to exhibit to you, which we don't have in our hands currently. But our current pieces, I think you're going to see us.
I lost audio. I can't hear anything. Can you hear me?
Yeah, it looks like our city council folks have frozen.
Uh-oh.
So we can just stand by and hope they unfreeze. I can also send Hannah a message and let her know they've frozen.
Okay.
How did that happen? Chris, I don't know if you're paying attention, but you just became the host of this meeting. I let Hannah know.
I don't know how that happened either.
Well, here you go. Let's see what you have for the rest of the night for us, Chris.
Dinner time, maybe?
I know. Right? You gonna sing for us? Tell us some jokes. Okay. Since nobody's paying attention, I have a bad joke for you. What are ducks' favorite snacks?
Quackers.
Quackers.
Yes,
Yes.
quackers, yes. All right, doesn't get much worse than that, but
No,
good
it
effort
didn't.
there, Lori.
They better get us online quick, otherwise it's only gonna go downhill. Oh, Hannah just says the internet just went out. Well, this may be a shorter meeting than we thought.
Who knows?
Well, that would be too bad because we have some important stuff to cover, including our audit.
And our new attorney.
Yeah, and council member pay and well, she said the internet just went out. I'm gonna ask her if we can give it a minute to see if it comes back up.
Where are you at, Lori?
I'm currently in Denver right now. Can't you
Oh.
tell? The lovely.
A little bit. Hard to tell, I guess.
Yeah, I'm in Denver for a few days. Paul, where are you?
I'm in Avon.
Are you presenting to their council tonight as well?
I have actually Basalt later, so.
Oof.
But it's nice when I can do it by Zoom because otherwise I don't know how I would do it.
No.
Well, I get the long distance prize. I'm in Missouri.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Do you have family
Missouri
there?
or misery?
Well,
because you said it kind of quick.
There's a little bit of both today. It was a long, hot ride this afternoon. No family. I'm just out here with a group of friends and we're biking the Katy Trail, which is a rails to town.
Wow. That sounds actually really fun.
It is
I'm
really
jealous.
fun. Okay, let me I'm gonna put you on mute and call Hannah for half a second.
Okay.
Okay, so apparently City Hall's internet is completely down. They are continuing the meeting. So I asked that they could hold off, but Tracy is in the middle of her chamber presentation. And so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put you all on speakerphone with my phone, and Hannah is still in the meeting so we can hear. But we're gonna have to figure out what we can do so that Rebecca, you can participate. Evan, you can do the executive session, and Paul, you can do your presentation. So, let me take you. I'm gonna put this on speaker. Hannah's.
Hey, Lori, I can drop off to make it easier. I just wanted to listen in just for informational purposes, situation awareness and stuff is all, and to hear more about your new city attorney. But,
Yeah,
I mean,
I'd love for you to hang on if you can. If you can't hear, let me know. Hannah hasn't taken me off of mute yet, so
okay.
I was hoping she
Yeah,
would.
no, I can hang out and listen. I just, if capacity wise, if it made it easier, I can drop off if that helps.
Don't think so at this point, but
Does Hannah still have you on mute? Because I don't hear anything.
Also, Lori, are we somehow managing to record what's going on in the meeting? I know that Zoom was recording this. Can we have like Hannah switch on the recording that she was going to use for executive session or something, just so if we do appoint a city attorney, I want to make sure that's on record.
yeah,
what's gonna be the give and take there? Thank you. That's very, very much. Thank you.
I don't know.
Well, there's recording in progress.
Okay, looks like us folks in Zoom land are back, so thank you.
Not back on video. You appear to be back on audio. Rebecca, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Thank you. I can hear you and
Good.
see.
And Paul, can you hear us as well? Oh, here we are. We got video. All right.
Oh, no, okay,
Spoke too soon.
I'm not touching anything.
It's the HDMI. Alright.
That's all it's scary.
Okay, so we can hear you and see you as long as you can hear us. Seeing us is a bonus, but I think at least if we can proceed so that we can get through the rest of the agenda. I think we're good. We're good for the moment.
We can see you clearly.
Okay, great.
So what we have discussed is we just had a presentation by the EDC and the Chamber of Commerce. They have a funding request in front of us, but nobody on council had that in their packet. So we told them we'll be happy to consider it, but we can't take action on it in the city council meeting. So that's where we are. Not sure. Can you guys all hear us okay? All right, good.
I just have a comment
Please.
for the EDC. I was representing the city on EDC, but that has proven to be too heavy of a lift for me. And appreciate the role that Tamara has taken on. She's put in a ton of work to get the EDC going in the right direction, but as she mentioned, there were a lot of long meetings to be able to get it to where it's at now. And I was unable to fulfill my obligations.
That makes sense. Those were 8-hour meetings sometimes, right?
With that comes with, I just am unable to do that. So if anybody else wants to raise their hand, represent the city, please feel free.
And be aware that we will not be doing our meetings. One more, and then we'll be regular meetings.
I think at the next city council meeting, we'll ask, for that kind of participation, let people think about if they want to take a role on the EDC board. Although, did we actually have a membership in 2023?
No.
I don't know that, I have to go back and see.
Just like-
We had a moratorium on membership.
Okay, that makes sense.
So we put it on hold, so
Gotcha.
nobody was doing memberships, so we
All
got
right.
to restart.
Thank you. I don't feel quite that. Okay. And thank you guys for the presentation. Really do appreciate it. At this time, we have our auditor from Van Associates. Can you hear us, Paul?
I can.
Then you have the floor.
All right. I love how quickly Leadville responds. I just put in a complaint that the internet was down and it's back up. So
That's how good we are.
I know, I like that. I'm going to share my screen here and briefly walk you through the audit and then answer any questions anyone has. So this is actually Leadville's audit binder, and I just want to show you a few things. So when we're doing the audit, during the planning stage, we read all your minutes. So I feel like I attended your minutes or your meetings all year. But probably the main thing that we do is we go through each department and look at the internal controls. How does money come in? How does money go out? And during that time, we're pulling various data from each system that you have. And so I thought I would just show you, in this case, we pulled your check register. And this is actually every check written during the year. And then we apply a thing called Benford's Law, where you can look for any outliers. As an example, this shows basically that you fall within norms for this database. We'll also pull out of all your check registers, so you can see we pulled any keywords, Zelle, PayPal, Cash, Etsy, Venmo, and we found one cash and we pulled that. Then we do things like look for each employee of the city and see whether or not there was any, expenses or checks written that we need to look at. And the good news is there isn't any, but we're kind of doing that with each database that the city has. Kind of the old model of auditing used to be random sampling, and now the new model is kind of looking at an entire database and then pulling transactions from that sample. That's kind of all done during the planning stage, and you can see we have met with each of your departments and kind of go through all that. The fieldwork part is verifying numbers. So as an example, this is your cash section. And, our goal is to make sure that if the city has money in the bank, that if your financial statements say you have $2.1 million in your bank account, that's actually in the bank and it's reconciled, it's insured by FDIC or the Public Deposit Protection Act. It follows your investment policy, it follows state statutes, it's a reasonable, prudent investment to make. But the goal is to make sure that if your financial statements say you have X dollars in the bank, that you actually have that money in the bank. We go through all your receivables, whether it's, taxes receivables, grant receivables, things like that. We want to make sure that checks come in, they get deposited timely, coded correctly. So we know that we're following up on anyone that owes the city money. Capital assets was, a big year kind of for the city. This is your capital asset records, which we help keep. Kind of big capital asset additions was your 809 purchase, the Tabor Opera House, and then I believe you had some fire trucks purchases also. And so all those get added. Here's your type 3 lease fire trucks on there. But basically we add all your assets and deletions. We want to make sure that all your capital assets are tracked, depreciated appropriately, insured, and we're just making sure that all the city's assets are handled appropriately. We go through all your accounts payable. You saw some of that with the check register. We want to make sure that stuff is paid timely. We're paying stuff, we're not paying any interest or late fees, and it's coded correctly. And it's all related to city business. We go through all your payroll, make sure it complies with your various policies, and that you filed everything you need to with IRS. I actually have been part of an IRS audit with the city of Leadville in the past, and I'm pleased to report that there was no issues. That was probably, I don't know, several years ago, but we want to make sure we're in the good graces with the federal government. We go through all your leases, and Leadville's one of the interesting cities in the fact that you don't have any CLPs or bonded debt, but you do have these lease obligations, so we have to make sure we complied with everything we need to there. We go through your equity, which is making sure we have the correct reserves, the correct amounts in each fund. We do some work on the LURA. Then we go through various ballot questions that you've passed that you've had passed with the electorate, and we want to make sure we comply with that. We go through state statutes, want to make sure we comply with all the various statutes you have. And the goal is to produce audited financial statements, which are in your packet. And the audited financial statements, are, let's take a quick look here, are, painfully long. I'm sure 71 pages in your packet, and you're like, why do I have a 71 page financial report? And the answer is because it's not really just for you, the council, or even the electorate. It goes, to your granting relationships, the federal government, the state government. We file it with Colorado State Auditor. It gets filed with the SEC. There's just a lot of different parties that use it. And I'm not gonna spend a lot of time going through it, other than to mention the independent auditor's report would be referred to as a unmodified or a clean audit opinion. It means all those parties that use it can rely on it. There is a section in here called the management discussion and analysis, which we help quite a bit, even though it's management's discussion analysis. We kind of help your finance team by preparing that, and then they modify it. There's a couple things in here I'll just show you. Leadville, like a lot of Colorado municipalities, is experiencing just huge growth. I live in Avon, and we have a number of employees that have moved over to Leadville and love it over there. And you're seeing the result of that. This is a schedule of your fund balances over time. The blue is the general fund. You can see that it's, really increased these last couple of years. Some of that is, federal money rolling out, but a lot of it is, increased sales tax. And if you look, this is a 10-year schedule of your sales tax going forward. So in, I want to say 2020, there was a federal court case that basically allowed municipalities to collect sales tax on internet sales. And so, like most municipalities, I think we audit 30 or 40 municipalities, you're seeing this huge jump in sales tax. Then there's one other page that I kind of want to run, or one or two other pages that I want to run through. It just shows money coming in and money going out. So you can see on here, this is the general fund, conservation trust, fire operations, accommodations tax, and the LURA. In total, we had almost $10 million in deposits into the city funds, 10 million going out. And so you take the revenue, subtract the expenses, and you get this net change in fund balances. So we added 514,000 last year to our beginning fund balance of 3.3 million. You ended the year with 3.8 million. I like to divide this 3.8 million into the 6.5 million that you spent. That's kind of as a percentage your fund balance reserve. I'm not so good at math in my head, but that's 60%, or actually 59% fund balance reserve. And that's a solid, prudent reserve. It's neither what I would consider really high. I mean, I see some municipalities up around 100%. And it's not too low either. Once you start getting around 30-35%, it becomes a concern that you don't have adequate resources to cover kind of the various timing differences for when sales tax comes in. So that was good. We added 514,000 to our general fund. The other funds were, kind of in and out, other than we added 285 to the fire operations fund. So overall your funds, you had net income of 754,000. Again, I think city council and kind of management has been very prudent with how you've handled city finances. And I'm an auditor, I really don't say anything nice, but I also have the advantage of looking at 40 or 50 municipal financial statements every year. Couple other things I'll just point out, kind of where you have your money. You have the city's been good about putting money aside in Call a Trust. This is your schedule of fixed assets during the year. You can see this is kind of a summary of that schedule I showed you. Here you can see this is pretty much your Tabor Opera House and your workforce housing additions, and so that adds to all your capital assets. The other thing I will just show you is this is a schedule of all your leases that occurred during the that you have outstanding during the year, which is trucks and equipment. Basically, here's that fire engine type 3-in-1. And here's your schedule of future payments on those leases. basically you have two payments of 412,000, then it starts dropping down. And you can see this is a schedule of your beginning balance that you owe on your leases. Compensated absences is a fancy word for accrued sick and vacation. And then your pension, your police pension. So we added a little bit to that, but you ended the year essentially owing 1.4 million on those leases. And the pension fund is actually an asset. That's the negative means it's in a positive place. So that's good. There's other information in here. I won't spend a lot of time on it. You'll also note in here, I was mentioning there's a lot of different users of the financial statements. We actually do audit your local highway finance report here, which allows you to get your highway financing money from the state. That's another user of the financial statements. So with that said, I'd be happy to answer any questions on this. If there isn't any questions, then I'll move on to our letter of recommendations. But I just want to make sure I'm kind of answering any questions on where the numbers ended or how we ended up.
Any questions for Paul? I have one, Paul. You talked about FDIC insurance. How high is the FDIC insurance on, like, if we have $2.5 million in our account at the at community banks, is that covered by FDIC?
It isn't, but it's not necessarily a concern. So there's a thing called the Public Deposit Protection Act, which in Colorado means that certain banks that take municipal money have to set aside a security equal to 101% of what you have in your account. So we actually go to the state banking website and we verify that the banks that you have your money with are listed as PDPA insured. So and they were. So basically if a bank went down, you would get 250,000 from FDIC and you'd get another security equal to 100% of what you have held. And that security would be a US bank treasury bill. And we make sure that your banks follow that so that if anything happens, the city would never lose money.
Great, no, thank you.
Is that arrangement something that is only applicable to like municipalities, not organizations like that, like people?
Any local government. So so there's actually the State Banking Commission has a website that we can take your PDPA number, put it in, and make sure that Leadville is covered. So when we're tying out your bank accounts, we make sure that that is what's happened. I'll just show you. You know, those are kind of the things that happen that you don't, that should happen on every audit, but don't. I'll just also point out here, like as an example, we also send confirms on your bank balance, but and we also make them confirm. We check it with the State Banking Commission also, but we confirm that the above deposit balances are subject to the PDPA and have provided adequate collateral. So there's kind of a double check. We do it once through the Banking Commission, and then we have the bank actually certify that that they're aware of those requirements and have included them. And so that's the stuff that kind of happens in the background. If you look, we actually have scanned in 302 different work papers as part of the process of going through the city's audit, making sure that everything's been handled appropriately. So hopefully that answers your question.
Oh, it did. Thank you. That's great. It actually good to know. I've never given that thought before.
Yeah. Dealing with that equipment generation.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like,
Okay.
that's not available for us.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. There's a lot of things like that we go through that kind of is in the background, but I'm pleased to say that we have, because all we do is financial statement audits, we don't do any tax work. everyone in our office is familiar with those type of issues, and we're making sure, trying to keep you guys out of the headline for anything negative.
Appreciate it. Okay, Paul, if you would move on to the final document of recommendations.
So there's a letter that we have to provide to all our clients, that every auditor has to provide, and it has some information in here. It's, you know, written in technical language, but basically we have to tell you what are the biggest estimates in here. Really, you have two estimates. You know, how long are your assets going to last? You follow standard useful lives. Whoever depreciated your original town hall building, although I think it was a post office, over 30 years was probably off, but you follow standard useful lives, and I wouldn't change anything there. The other is the FPPA pension for police and fire. That's all based upon actuarial estimates, but again, I wouldn't recommend changing anything. No difficulties encountered performing the audit, maybe got strung out a little longer with Donna. Moving on, although we will get a seer at advocates, so we can always ask her questions if we have to. And then corrected and uncorrected misstatements. That's what journal entries did we have. We didn't have anything significant that I would consider problematic. I think, as the mayor mentioned when he was going through the financial statements, we want to make sure that things are being handled appropriately in your finance department to make sure that when you look at the numbers, they're correct. By and large, they are, although maybe they're running a little further behind. There is kind of one area of concern. The LURA opened a separate bank account, and I think that was maybe opened by one of the BOCC members, but I believe it has the city taxpayer ID on it, and the LURA accounts are really handled under the city's audited financial statements. So we just want to make sure that the city has a signer on that account, and you basically have control over that account. I think that's kind of critical. It's not that there was any concerns there, but we want to make sure that ultimately the city has a full control over that account. And then the other is just a note that you know, the LURA did end up with a deficit. You do have this promissory note on there for a total of $185,000, but really the LURA owes the city $327,000. So I don't know that you have to update that promissory note, but if you wanted to keep it consistent with the amount that is owed, you would want to increase it from the 185 to the 327. I'll let your attorney kind of decide the risk factors on that. And then the last is just that there is a new accounting standard coming up. We'll take care of handling that for you. We'll work with Crystal and your finance team to make sure that's taken care of. But we just want to make sure you guys know that a lot of times I have people call me and say, hey, did you hear about this new accounting standard? And it's like, yes, that's what we do. So those are kind of the three things that I bring to your attention. But overall, I think the city had a great audit, and kind of the results, financial results ended up really solid too. You added capital assets and still added to your fund balance. So.
Thank you, Paul. Are there any questions for Paul?
I actually have one question regarding the findings in the LURA. Mayor, I thought that the LURA got its own EIN. I thought that was a big to-do before that account was opened, that it was not opened under the city's EIN.
I opened it under the LURA's EIN. You're right, it took about 2 weeks to get that EIN, and we felt fortunate to have gotten it. So, Paul, how certain are you that that's a city's EIN that the bank account had?
I am not certain on that, but I am certain that we need to have, you know, city control over that account. So
that's fair, and I would say that, you know, we have some discussions between the city and the LURA that need to take place. For one thing, it is my understanding, and I think it's been confirmed by our attorney, that some of the things that we are attributing to LURA as costs for the city probably are not supposed to be attributed, like attorney's fees, according to state statute. Those should not be, those are paid by the city. Don't know why, but I think that's what statute says.
We have
Yeah.
been, Mayor, we have been covering those costs. We have not, that's not part of what the Laura owes, is we have been covering the legal fees. But
Okay.
just getting back to the question, I do not understand if the Laura is a separate legal entity created by statute with its own governing board of directors, why the city would need to be a signer on their bank account.
Well, primarily, because it's reported under your financial entity, so you create the LURA. You ultimately, as city council, are responsible for the creation of that entity. And as such, it has to follow under your financial report, per generally accepted accounting principles. And we just want to make sure that we can always get whatever information we want. And so I think you want to make sure that, you know, somebody at the city has the ability to call up the bank and say, hey, I need these statements or I need this information, without a problem.
We should be able to make that easy, yeah.
Because I know that the entity it's a separate legal entity created by and governed by its own board of directors. So I didn't want to overstep the city's bounds.
Yeah, and I understand that. From a financial reporting standpoint, it's a little different because ultimately the city creates the LURA. And yes, it's a separate entity and kind of rises and falls on its own, but it's going to always get reported under the city's financial reporting model. So.
Gotcha. Okay.
And we have a lot of municipalities with LURAs. I ultimately think it's beneficial to Leadville, how you set it up. And, you know, I think it's ultimately going to be really good for Leadville. You know, there's always kind of challenges when they first start off until they reach that growth phase. But ultimately, I think it's a good move for Leadville.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Lori, it's my understanding that the city has accepted this audit, is that correct?
Well, I mean, I think, yeah, we checked with our city attorney and we determined that a presentation was sufficient from our auditors and to allow the council to ask questions, that we did not need a formal resolution to adopt the audit. So I guess Paul is here to answer any questions that you may have, and no further action is required at this point unless your questions aren't answered and we need to follow up.
Thank you. Any further questions for Paul? Paul, thank you very much.
All right, thank you. I have another city council meeting with the SALT tonight, so I appreciate being able to present via Zoom. You guys have a great night, and we'll start getting this filed with everyone that needs it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Lori, any last thoughts about that before we move on to the next topic?
Nope, it's always nice to have Paul come and report good news. I want to thank Donna for all of her hard work to make that happen, and we will get Crystal up to speed, but just always nice to have a clean audit. And also for him to highlight that we're in, you know, good financial shape, adding assets. You know, that was an expenditure we had for last year, but the fact that we added capital assets and still had our general fund grow is fantastic news.
Thank you very much. The next agenda item is a resolution appointing the city attorney. Would you like to take the lead on that, Lori? You and Rebecca.
Sure, absolutely. So as you all know, we put out a request for proposals for a new city attorney. I wanted to take a moment and acknowledge that Linda's firm, Michelle Cox McCaskin, she clarified that they had been our city attorney since 1999. I had in the staff report 1995, but it's actually been since 1999. And Linda herself was our city attorney for a number of years and then handed off to Christiana. And after Christiana's departure, Evan has been filling in as our city attorney, and they have just been a fantastic partner with us. Linda was reminiscing today about, you know, the growth and change that she's seen in Leadville. And, you know, I asked her, I said, what is the thing that you've seen change the most? And she said, change. That Leadville used to have a lot of, you know, things didn't change at all ever. And, you know, people didn't move, and, you know, that change is the new norm. And she has seen us through a lot of that. So I personally want to thank Linda. Hopefully, Evan, you will pass that along to her. She's been a fantastic partner. And, you know, we were sort of joking that we were her first client, her first full-time city that she served when she became, you know, more or less a full-time municipal attorney outside of the city of Arvada. So we were fortunate to be one of her first clients, and her firm had served as well. Rebecca, Councilmember Thomas and I, we received 4 requests for proposals for our city attorney position, 4 different law firms. We interviewed each of the firms and reviewed their presentation, you know, RFP materials, which are in your packet. We were very pleased to receive such qualified applicants. I did get a chance to talk to Linda and Evan, and they assured us they were all qualified, you know, that we had a great pool of candidates to choose from. And, you know, it's nice when it's a difficult choice to pick a qualified candidate because your candidates are so good. But our recommendation is Huffman Parker and Hillary Graham and her team are going to be a fantastic partner for us. Hillary herself has 20+ years of municipal experience and has served numerous cities over her years of practice. And currently, Winter Park is, you know, a similar mountain town to us in a lot of respects that she is the city attorney for. Her team, one of the real tipping points for us with her team was that they would have a dedicated attorney for us for our council meetings. And we think that's important. One of the other finalists, they had a conflict on Tuesday nights and were not able to always guarantee the same person who would appear at our council meetings. And so Hillary assured us Elaine LeBlue, I think that's how you pronounce her last name. She would be our dedicated attorney for our meetings. And we would actually be, once like Linda, she would be, Leadville would be her first primary municipal client, and we would be her first full-time city. So that's fantastic for us. We are growing as a city. We have more legal needs because of the things we're doing with code changes and everything. So it's important for us to have a dedicated person come to our council meetings, and also a firm that can handle our legal capacity, because we do have greater legal needs. There were some firms that were fantastic, but we weren't sure that they could handle the capacity of work. And also, Huffman Parker, you know, their team also includes, you know, land use specialty, which is a big, you know, one of our big legal needs is land use lately in our code changes and applications and development. So really, they ticked all the boxes for us. And so it was a tough recommendation, but I want to turn things over to Rebecca, or Councilmember Thomas, to see if she has anything to add as far as our methodology and evaluation of the candidates.
Thanks, Lori. I really appreciated the opportunity to participate in these interviews. They took place over the course of a couple of weeks. And as Lori already said, I think we had 4 very, very strong candidates. It's kind of an interesting process. Lori and I didn't compare notes after any of the interviews until the very end, and just happened to have the same top 2 choices, which I think was really good. And as Lori already mentioned, I think what pushed me over the top for Huffman Parker, and perhaps Lori too, was the fact that we'll have an attorney dedicated to Leadville for our city council meetings on Tuesdays. So I think we came up with a great choice, and I'm glad we could make an offer to them.
Thank you. Any questions for either Lori or Rebecca relative to this decision? I do have a question that has really nothing to do with the process, but it's my understanding that we reappoint city attorneys each year. Is that your understanding as well?
I don't think that that's necessary. So we would essentially, you can see the contract that is a template contract attached to your packet materials. We would appoint by resolution as you can see it, Hoffman Parker and Hillary's team to be our city attorney, and we would enter into a contract with them. The contract has termination, clauses where we could either the city or the firm could notify the other of the option to discontinue the relationship. And then we would be back where we are, where we would, need to appoint a new city attorney. But we did not, as far as I see, reappoint Christiana every year. I think we appointed her by resolution, and that resolution will carry forward until changed by the council. Or we receive notice from the law firm that they can't serve us anymore.
Thank you. Any other questions for either Lori or Rebecca? In which case, and having looked at the resolution and the proposed motion, I would entertain a motion. And keeping in mind, one of the things this motion does is authorizes the city administrator to execute the agreement on behalf of the city. Would anybody like to make a motion?
Councilmember Luna moves to approve, resolution number 19, series of 2023, resolution, appointing the city attorney. Do I have to say the name? Should have probably asked that.
No, you're just approving the resolution.
Okay, the city attorney for the city of Leadville, and approving a professional services agreement.
Green seconds.
Is there any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilmember Hill,
Yes.
Councilmember Grant,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Green,
Yes.
Mayor Levy,
Yes.
Councilmember Grant. Did I say?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Councilmember Larson is absent and Councilmember Thomas.
Yes.
Councilmember Luna.
Yes.
Anybody?
Thank you very much.
I still a little.
That was a lot of hard work to interview all these attorneys, and I appreciate the effort both for Lori and Rebecca. Thank you very much. Okay, next up, we have resolution number 20. This resolution of authorizing a contribution to the Storysworth County. Adam, you have the floor.
Thank you so much. Here, I do have a presentation, but also, there's been a lot going on and all that tonight, so.
Did you send it?
It was sent a while ago, so.
Oh, was it the one that's in the packet?
We have it in our bag.
Right, perfect. Yeah, so the stories we're telling, this is gonna be the second annual event for here in Leadville. This will be the third year that this actual event is going on, but it was started in Golden. This year, really excited to bring it back to the Tabor. Last year, as I said, it was the first year we had it here. And we ended up seeing one of the largest attendance at the Tabor Opera House in years. We sold over 280 tickets. And for mid-October, that was a pretty good showing. We were able to keep some body warmth in the space, which, as we know, is a struggle for the Tabor. I think for anyone who is in attendance, they can attest to the fact that, it's not just a film festival. It really is about the storytelling aspect and about bringing in filmmakers and subjects and community members to just kind of talk about what all the films mean, what storytelling means, and kind of what the human connection means there. So this is very much an event that we target to our community members as a bit of a thank you for sort of, another long summer of visitation, and then also just for some region to attract some regional tourism from, let's say, Chaffey County and Summit County, and just sort of bring people from nearby who are still willing to make a trek up to Leadville and contribute to our economy. So we are asking for a financial contribution of $2,000, which is the same match as last year. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have about the event or the contribution.
I love that you brought Melissa up last year. I thought that was pretty special, and just so everybody knows, they brought up several participants, the people, about whom the film was made. And had them speak, and it was a huge turnout, it was a great experience, thank you.
Yeah, I will say that, there are 11 films to choose from this year, and the films are actually being curated for, the audience, so we're making sure that, a few of those, Samagoda is one of the films, and Vanessa, who actually was just at our Outdoor Industry Summit and at the Sobo Trail Days event. She was just here, she lives in New Mexico, and she'll be, coming back for the event, to speak on behalf of that film, and so they are sort of, they curate the event for us because we're let go, and we, you know, our ability to deal with a 3.5-hour program is a little aggressive here, so they actually cut it down to a 2-hour program here, which I appreciate as a dad of young kids. So, so we're actually gonna curate from the 11 films, I think something like 7 or 8 of the films that sort of feel most in keeping and are most relevant to sort of our community, and also are the most regional storytelling to Colorado. So.
I do want to say that the city is allowed to sponsor, not sponsor is probably the wrong term, but set aside the Table Rock House for a certain number of events each year. This is one of them. The Main Street auction is another one. You know, so I think we're doing, 4 events that are being done outside of the Table Rock House programming, but rather ones that the city is allowed to take place at the Table Rock House. We're not directly involved in these things, but indirectly, yes.
Yeah.
Any questions, Fred?
So the films that are kind of outlined in this packet are from which the selected films were?
So those are actually last year's films,
Oh,
just to give you.
Because I was like, were you reading this back?
Yeah.
That was like for a solid.
Yeah. No, so again, it was just to give anyone who might not have the context an idea of the programming. But no, the films will be brand new.
Okay, one last chance for questions. In which case, I would entertain a motion, please.
Question, maybe not for then, how much money do we have in the contingency?
else is
coming
Last time I checked, it was about $45,000. Tell us about it.
Well, remember, we had that additional chunk of money that was, not part of the contingency fund initially, and then we moved it into the contingency fund, right? So the original contingency expenditures, this does not include the packet that just came out. We had about 22 grand. And then I think there's maybe 1,500 in operating contingency that's in our bills for the last few months, and then this 2,000. So, do we ever? Yes. And that's not including that other chunk of money.
Right, which is
Our extra slush.
okay, there's extra slush one.
Well, that's how I'm
Okay.
thinking about it separately from the. That's what it has like for.
Thank you. This time, I would entertain a motion, please.
Resolution 2023. Resolution authorizing a contribution to the Stories Worth Telling Film Festival.
Green seconds.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilmember Hill,
Yes.
Mayor Nobby,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Green,
Yes.
Councilmember Liliana,
Yes.
Councilmember Graham,
Yes.
Councilmember Thomas,
Yes.
and Councilmember Lewis and Zach.
Adam, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Everything is happening on the 14th, which is the day of the annual Saturday.
So everything happened last week.
Awesome.
Okay, at this time, we're gonna take about a 10-minute break. Then after the 10-minute break, we'll meet upstairs for executive session. I'm sorry, yes, we do have to do that. And so, I'll go through my script and then I'll have you make the motion. If you will. Okay. The next item on the agenda is executive session under section 24-6-424B of the Colorado Revised Statutes for legal advice on specific legal questions concerning a settlement agreement between the city of Leadville and RFS CLBG LLC. The executive session participants will leave the public meeting following the passage of a motion to go into executive session, and the public meeting, both in person and remote, will remain open for the public to enter and leave as desired while the executive session is being held. The executive session participants will complete the executive session and then will re-enter the public meeting to proceed with any other further business. Are there any questions from city council about the executive session process before a motion is brought forward? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion, please.
We moves to go into executive session under section 24-6-4024B of the Colorado Revised Statutes for legal advice on specific legal questions concerning the settlement agreement between the city of Leadville and RFS CLBG LLC. I further move to reconvene the September 19th City Council meeting at the conclusion of the executive session in order to proceed with the remaining items on the agenda.
Do I have a second?
Seconds.
Is there any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Mayor Labby,
Yes.
Councilmember Green, or Mayor Pro Tem Green,
Yes.
Councilmember Hill,
Yeah.
Councilmember Luna Leon,
Yes.
Councilmember Grant, yes, Councilmember Thomas,
Yes.
and Councilmember Larson.
Okay. Thank you. At this time, we will take a 10-minute break and meet upstairs for executive session.
Mayor, were we gonna do that or were you gonna remain in place?
No, I thought you were the one who said we were going to go upstairs in our meeting today. Pardon me?
For personnel matters, if it was an executive session.
Okay.
It's up to you.
Well,
It doesn't matter.
Well, yes, we're gonna go upstairs, and the reason we are is it says in here, the public may remain in place.
Okay.
And, it says that in this script, so that's what we should do.
And do we need a separate link to get into executive session if we're going to a separate room? Because I do not have that.
I'm going to do a breakout room.
Okay.
We'll be back in just a moment.
Okay.
was back in. You know, she was getting aggravated because there was no discipline, we were just going regular.
I can't imagine she responded to that very well.
She used to have everything, you know, work, you know, according to her schedule. It wasn't going that way.
Okay, we are all.
Okay, we're back. Just make sure Lori and Evan are here. Great, thank you. The time is now 8:59. And the executive session has been concluded. The participants in the executive session were Mayor Pro Tem David Green, Councilmember Shannon Grant, Councilmember Rebecca Thomas, Councilmember Christian Leal, Councilmember Tim Hill, Mayor Greg Lobby, City Administrator Lori Simonson, City Clerk Hannah Shear, and City Attorney Evan King. For the record, if any person who participated in the executive session believes that any substantial discussion of any matters not included in the motion to go into executive session occurred during the executive session, or that any improper action occurred during the executive session in violation of the open meetings law, I ask that you state your comments, your concerns for the record. Okay, thank you. Seeing none, I will entertain a motion. We already do have a motion to go back into the convene the September 19, 2023 special meeting, and we had a second. So I would ask all in favor of that motion, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you. All were in favor. So at this time, we are back in our regular city council session. And in front of us, we have resolution number 21. It's a resolution ratifying the approval of a settlement agreement between RFS CLVG LLC and the city of Lebanon. Any discussion on this agreement? Hearing no further questions for discussion, I would entertain a motion, please.
Green moves to approve resolution number 21, series of 2023, a resolution ratifying the approval of a settlement agreement between RFS CLVG LLC and the city of Leadville.
Now, Christian, go on.
Okay, fair enough.
Is there any other discussion? I want to thank Evan and Lori for getting us to this point. I'm sure it was it's a complicated matter, so thank you for your thorough explanation. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Thomas,
Yes.
Councilmember Hill,
Yes.
Mayor Lobby,
Yes.
Councilmember Leal,
Yes.
Councilmember Grant,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Green,
Yes.
Councilmember Lori Simonson.
Okay, thank you all very much. Next up, we have ordinance number 5, series of 2023, an ordinance amending section 2.40.0160 of the Leadville Municipal Code concerning the compensation of incoming city council members. Laura, would you like to take it?
Sure, I will just give you the background on why we are discussing this. So we had multiple discussions over the past, probably a little bit greater than 6 months, about compensation. And so the council decided to create a stipend for our commissions, Historic Preservation and Planning Commission. And we also agreed to increase the salary of the mayor. In amongst all those discussions, there was a discussion regarding council member compensation. And what we realized is we had those discussions, we thought we had reached a consensus back then, but when we went and researched it, we realized that we had not actually done a formal resolution to codify, essentially put an ordinance forth to say this is what the compensation would be. So that is what this is. This is first reading of an ordinance that would change our code from $200 a month for council members to incoming council members receiving $600 a month. Now, because our code is written that current council cannot change their own salary, this would not affect any council members who are currently serving a term. It would be incoming council members, or it would be a current council member who runs for a new term. So you're not affecting your own salary. I want to make that clear. It would be for incoming council members going forward, $600 a month.
Any questions for Lori on that topic? I would entertain the motion, but also I'd like to ask if we would set a date certain in that motion of October the 17th. Does that sound correct to you, Lori?
Yeah, I just would ask Evan, do we have to set a date certain for the second reading, or do we just have to schedule a second reading? Indicate in the motion that there needs to be a second reading, because I appreciate having a date certain, but sometimes we get a full agenda and things, or something happens and something needs to be moved. So I'd rather not have to redo it if I don't have to.
Remind me, do you guys do hearings for your second ordinances or second readings?
Yes.
Yes.
Then it needs to be a date certain.
Great. Okay, so the October 17th is the earliest we could have the second reading. So is that let's just make sure that's the correct date. Is that?
I'm sorry, what did you say? Which day in October?
Yeah.
17th
is the earliest we could do it.
In terms of notification to the public, yes, okay.
Correct.
Thank you very much for that clarification. I would entertain a motion, please.
Unalad moves to approve ordinance number 5, series of 2023, an ordinance amending section 2.40.160 of the Leadville Municipal Code concerning the compensation of incoming city council members on the first reading, and requests that the second reading be set on October 17th at our regular meeting of the city council.
Grant seconds.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion? Okay, thank you very much. Roll call, please.
Mayor Levy,
Yes.
Councilmember Grant,
Yes.
Councilmember Thomas,
Yes.
Councilmember Hill,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Green,
Yes.
Councilmember Minaleo,
Yes.
Councilmember Larson is absent.
Thank you all very much. I'd like to dot those i's and cross those t's. It's something we agreed on some time ago, but I guess it never occurred to us that we should actually put that in ordinance if we did it, if we just didn't do it. At this time, I would entertain any public comments on anything you'd like to speak about.
Well, I reflect that it's on the floor there for me, so. My name is Steve Preston, I reside at 131 East Third Street, 5 points here. Point 1, let the record reflect that a hound dog was 50% of the public for the council's movement to executive session. Point 2, while seeking ballot petition signatures, speaking with over 100 individuals, to me, generally citizens evidence a strong negative opinion to the recent 825K property purchase by the city. At this point in time, I believe that it'd be most prudent to demolish that building and make spacious employee housing there for city employees. Point 3, because of ethics and transparency, the city need legislate that all internet speakers, especially council and board members and city employees, report where they are located at. That this be done at the beginning of the meeting, or if they enter the meeting later, that the meeting be paused for them to do so when they come online, and that there be a mechanism to verify such. Point 4, I do not have computer access, hence I request that this be facilitated by the city at City Hall. So I can attend lower meetings. My personal financial situation has cascaded in a negative direction due to my house being blighted by the city in the fall of 2016. Point 5, my impression, building in part on the past meetings, is that the Railie are either verbally or otherwise committed to building affordable housing on 5 lots, being 5 units of housing. and now Mayor Ladley, and constructively, this city council at this meeting is moving to reduce such commitment to one lot being one unit of affordable housing. Please clarify this situation.
If you don't mind, I would like to clarify, the reason we wanted one lot is we wanted one 5-unit apartment building rather than 5 different buildings on that same piece of land.
Are these gonna be, the same size? I mean, nobody should have to live in one room or a studio apartment. I like to see, you know, the comparable, amenities that the other property owners
These
have.
would all be approximately 1,600 square feet, each one of the apartments.
Okay, so they,
Upstairs, downstairs.
so how did they commit to this initially?
It was part of a negotiation with the PUD, the phase 2 PUD, which has actually never been, we're still waiting.
So it was never put in writing, is what you're saying?
Oh, it wasn't right.
Okay,
It is part of the stipulation.
The 5 units.
Well, the 5 units was our idea, you know, that's what we wanted. What we asked for is the land, not, we didn't specify to the developer the number of units. He probably could care less about that. What we want is 5 units, and how we wanted to do that was one building, a rental building, on one lot instead of 5 individual lots. He could give us 5 individual lots, but if he does that, then we'd have to do a lot consolidation, so we'd rather just avoid that.
So one large lot instead of 5 small.
Right, because it's going to be one building.
Okay, so
And it's not just saying.
in the future, hopefully, this be cast in stone on what their commitment will be in this, you know.
Their commitment was only to the land, not to the actual number of buildings. That's our job. To provide that building.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Okay, this time, council reports.
As previously mentioned, there was a whole debacle about the Regional Housing Authority. I think it's appropriate, as much as I don't want to update you all now on that. But basically, I met with Jackie, and it's my understanding that this county employee did not communicate with anyone about the presentation they were doing. That included the idea of potentially pulling out of the IGA with us regarding the Regional Housing Authority.
But they must have spent weeks preparing it.
Yeah, I
I'm
know.
not sure I buy that, that's all, I'm sorry.
Well, you know, it's, I think, you know, at this point, we can. Alright, at least next steps that I am willing to take is, you know, saying, whatever, it's water under the bridge. They should definitely talk about communication and their employees communicating with the proper parties before they present, but. That's neither here nor there, and that's something that they can figure out. But we do definitely have to figure out what's going on. Jackie has come to us twice now with a request without any detail about what the request entails. There's a lot of confusion about what funds are being used for what. I had to meet with her to talk about it for over an hour to get a good understanding of what funds are being used for what, who was awarded what, and why. So there's a lot of updates to be had, like I said, for a different date, but gist of it is we definitely need to have a joint work session with the county around who's doing what and what falls under what organization. Just so that there isn't this confusion anymore. There's confusion about the pay, there's confusion about the 2A funds, how that's coming in. There's a lot of confusion about all of that from just, you know, from my perspective, that neither the county nor Jackie understands, and then there's confusion on our end about commitments that the county has, so.
I mean, to be clear, you're absolutely correct, but to be clear, Lori's had this conversation with the county. We asked them to send us 2 bills. You know, we did a $50,000 advance, as you know, against 2A. And then we asked them to send us 2 bills, one for the 2A money balance and one for the director's pay. And we've received neither, but they did send us one big bill that was completely incorrect. They had things on it that we'd already paid. So it's the communication is not great.
Yeah.
I'll just leave it at that.
We need a financial person.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
And
on the-
just to let everybody know, I did offer to, and Jackie and I have been talking about, I offered to sit down with her and come up with a budget proposal that would offer the detail that the city council was requesting about their $300,000 ask. So if there's an impression out there that we've said no to the ask, or that, we're not willing to fund the regional housing authority, I don't believe that's the case. I believe that, we've expressed our support of it, and that I would love to sit down with Jackie and go over a budget that we think would be a good presentation for the city council.
And it's my understanding, though, the meeting has not been published, though I have put a pull request on it from Friday, has yet to be published, though. We're coming up to that 4th day tomorrow. It's my understanding from the people who were there that there wasn't really a big pushback other than from Jeff Fiedler on this idea, even from Jackie herself. So that's kind of the concern that I had. And I think most of it stemmed from that idea that we're not supporting it, and that we can't afford it because we bought the building.
I would like to really, because I know I was the one who was kind of pushing Jackie on the money that they requested. It's really important to me that it's clear that the reason that I want a detailed budget and I want to understand more is not because we can't, I'm pretty sure we can afford it. I just, at that point, hadn't seen financials for quite a while. That was just our own transition in financial people. And so I felt like we probably can't afford this, but didn't want to commit to anything without really knowing that for sure. And also that, as I think it's our fiduciary responsibility to know and to be able to easily explain, like, what is this money going to? And I'll tell you, I will have the same issue with the chamber and the EDC, I want to know what the funding specifically is going to, because I think if somebody comes to the city and requests our funds, they need to really detail what those funds are for.
I'm really looking forward to the conversation about the chamber and what they're asking for.
Yeah.
Not
But
right
I really just don't want this to come across as the city not wanting to fund it. Like, having seen the financials, I know we can, and I also just personally want to, but I want to be responsible about knowing what we're funding.
Yes.
That's all.
So, on that note, I just think it's appropriate to us sit down with them and clear everything out and start fresh. Say, all right, friends are. We're gonna start fresh, and any issues that come up, please just communicate them with us instead of, having the staff present something that could potentially harm any future funding that we may have, or current funding that could potentially be pledged by DOLA. It's very dangerous. It causes a lot of unnecessary stress. And it causes a lot of frustration with the whole ordeal. So yeah, I guess I'll leave it at that, and we can.
You already heard how I feel about it. I felt like we had a good agreement, folks, and I'm not sure it's not a good agreement. It really has to do with the interpretation. But enough of that. Any other city council reports?
I don't have a report, I have a request.
Please.
In the same way that we went and passed this, or did the first step of this ordinance to reestablish city council salaries, we need to do something similar for the job description for the mayor, which still an ordinance says that you're in charge of all the city departments.
But we did put
We put that in
ordinance, we put it in her, you're right.
But we need to,
Well, I
in
think
terms of, in the veins of having an agreement.
as a statutory city, the only way we could do that is by going to the electorate and changing to what's called a city council, city manager form of government. That is statutorily how it has to work.
Can we not at least change the job description so it's not?
Of the mayor?
Yeah.
Not without going to the ballot.
Okay.
That's my understanding. We can hear more from our new city attorney about that. You know, it's a good point. If we could do that, if we could change that code by changing ordinance instead of going to a vote, then maybe that's a good way to do it. I don't think we can.
Cool.
I hope I'm wrong.
Can I leave my last comment with just a little bit of humor? So I was trying to look back on like how long I've actually been part of this body. So this is from our minutes, just not your minutes, from 2018. This was from the mayor's report and was obviously not transcribed correctly. The Penn Mountain Ski Down was a lot of fun and tremendous involvement. There were 52 third graders, and there isn't much longer to celebrate those few that are still alive.
I love that.
I know.
I think that's an exact, perfect
I
quote.
don't think you said that. I started it back then. But anyway.
That's anything about the frustration of dealing with third grade.
I opened up this document, that was the page it opened to. I didn't
That's-
know that it was in here.
I have one more thing. I wanted to ask if we could put the security of the court, municipal court on for discussion at a near future meeting.
I think
Yes.
that's a good idea.
I would, yes, and I would like to think about that too, because security issues are something that we can talk about in an executive session. So you don't always want to put out your vulnerabilities for some of your facilities in a public meeting. So we can certainly do that.
Thank you.
That was an interesting string, and I read it as well, and I didn't know it had happened until I came downstairs and there were people here filling out affidavits. The people who had been threatened, so that was pretty unsettling.
I think also it's, you know, something that Max used to bring up, just about, you know, security within these chambers. Separate, but again, more overreaching the umbrella of security.
I know we
Yes,
have to
it-
think about it, it's just a shame that we have to look at it, that's all.
But we have to.
Yeah, we have to, you're right. Anything else from city council? At this time, I did all my talking earlier, meetings planner, anything you want to add or subtract or? I show the harvest dinner is Friday.
It's Friday.
So you can sign up, you can, make your purchase online, I did that today, and the Main Street auction is on the 30th. And the film festival is on October 14th, and the career fair is on October 12th.
Tomorrow we have our regional housing authority meeting. We'll be discussing.
Okay.
Discuss items.
What time is your meeting, Bob?
5:30, starting at the AMAX room.
At the AMAX room? Okay, thank you. All right, anything else?
I am not available for a meeting on the second week of October. I think it's
The 17th. Oh, or the second, the work session or the 17th?
not available here.
Oh,
The 10th.
the 10th. And that was. Okay, we're doing the 10th, but I've got to read it down. That was a presentation on level 7, I think you did this.
Okay. Thank you. I'm just not there.
Have fun with it. All right. It is, well, yeah. It is 9:22 The city council adjourned.
It's been a while since we had a good one.